After the painful end of her marriage to a wealthy doctor and the loss of her job, Jessica and her young daughter, Sandra, found themselves venturing into the wilderness to claim an inheritance. The journey took an unsettling turn when the bus driver dropped them at an obscure, nameless stop. The sight was far from welcoming, instantly sparking Jessica's doubts about whether they were in the right place. "Mom, is this our stop? Where's the village? Why don't we see any houses?" Sandra questioned, her voice tinged with anxiety. Jessica, also uneasy, glanced at the bus driver as he unloaded their suitcases. "If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos." "Yes, this is the village. Trust me. I've been on this route for years. Just walk down that dirt road and you'll see it," he assured them. Jessica offered a weak smile of gratitude, feeling a flicker of relief as she set their luggage on the sun-baked asphalt. Reality hit hard. Traveling was far more challenging than it ever seemed from the safety of her office as a therapist. Instead of being stored in the luggage compartment, their suitcases served as makeshift seats for Jessica since they were picked up mid-route without tickets. The grueling 4-hour journey had drained them both, compounded by the fresh wounds of her divorce, the unjust loss of her job, and the frantic scramble to move. Sandra had slept through most of the ride, leaving Jessica to guard her dreams. Each bump and pothole the bus hit jolted her awake, and she clung tightly to their bags. When the bus finally departed, leaving them behind with a cloud of exhaust, Jessica felt a mix of trepidation and determination. "Well, my little adventurer, shall we start our trek?" Jessica asked, watching the bus disappear into the distance. "Yes, Mom, let's go. What if it gets dark?" "I'm scared of wolves," Sandra replied, her wide eyes scanning their surroundings nervously. Despite her age, Sandra often displayed maturity beyond her years, particularly after finishing second grade just a couple of months prior. Jessica smiled, trying to reassure her daughter. "Don't worry, sweetheart. There might be wolves, but the forest is still far away. We'll be fine. I promise." Sandra's eyes brightened with a glimmer of hope. "Really? Well, let's go then. Do you think our house will be big or small?" Jessica shrugged, uncertainty in her voice. "I wish I knew. We got this inheritance by chance." A kind patient made sure of it with a deep breath. She hefted the suitcases and began walking up the dirt path the driver had pointed out. Sandra followed, her small feet stirring up dust as they trudged uphill. After a few hundred meters, Jessica's strength waned, and she set the bags down, panting heavily. "I don't know if I can keep going," she thought, her legs trembling under the weight of their burden. "Mom, are you tired?" "Maybe I can help carry them," Sandra offered, her voice filled with concern and a touch of her youthful determination. Jessica smiled warmly at her daughter. "Where would you carry them?" "They weigh more than you do." Just as she finished speaking, a peculiar noise emerged from behind. It wasn't the hum of a motorcycle, but something much louder with a deep, distinctive rumble. A car. "Is it a car?" Jessica's thoughts raced. Turning around, her surprise was evident as she spotted the approaching vehicle. A taxi. "Out here in the middle of nowhere," she whispered, bewildered. "Mom, maybe the car is coming for us?" Sandra asked, her eyes filled with hope. Jessica shook her head gently. "Who would send a taxi for us out here?" Nevertheless, the car, enveloped in a cloud of dust, soon caught up to the weary travelers. The driver pulled over, opened the passenger door, and offered, "Need a lift? I can help with your suitcases." Jessica exchanged a hesitant glance with Sandra before deciding to accept the offer. Settling into the front seat, she made sure Sandra was comfortably seated in the back. The tall taxi driver quickly stowed their suitcases in the trunk. "Ready to go?" he asked, starting the engine. "I'm Jessica, and this is my daughter, Sandra," she introduced them shyly. The taxi driver nodded, and his conspicuous yellow cab roared to life, heading towards the village. To pass the time, Jessica cautiously inquired, "Are you on a call?" The driver smiled warmly. "Yes, I'm delivering medicine to the field hospital. They've set up a medical station in a house near the village, and I've been hired to pick up supplies from the pharmacy warehouse. It's much more convenient, and I've done this route several times." "A field hospital? That sounds serious. I wouldn't have expected a village like this to have its medical staff," Jessica remarked, her tone respectful. With no other medical facilities nearby and the district clinic being quite far, it's necessary. But there's a bit of a problem. The doctor, Arthur Gardner, has been working here for 80 years, but he recently fell ill with sciatica. There's no one else to see patients. The driver explained, his eyes fixed on the road. Jessica nodded sympathetically and gazed out the window. The vast yellow fields and sparse woodlands flanking the road gradually gave way to dense forest. "So where exactly are you headed? What's the address?" the taxi driver asked again. Jessica, startled from her thoughts, reached into her purse and unfolded a piece of paper. "Central Street, number 7. Do you know where that is?" The driver suddenly hit the brakes, bringing the car to an abrupt stop. "William, what's wrong? Is something the matter?" Jessica asked, concern evident in her voice. The driver looked at her with surprise. "Are you sure? Central Street, number 7. "Yes, that's right. Why would I be mistaken?" "It's written here," she replied, puzzled. The taxi driver shook his head. "You might have been given the wrong information. That address is where the field hospital is located, where I'm delivering medicine at Arthur's request." Jessica's breath caught in her throat. "A field hospital? But there's supposed to be a house there. I inherited it from Vincent Warren. I have the documents to prove it." William glanced at her with irony. "I believe you. There's no need to show me the documents. I wouldn't understand them anyway." Jessica felt a sting of offense and turned to look out the window. How could this happen, she thought. She had placed so much hope in this house, only to face disappointment. Returning was not an option, not after being cast out by her ex-husband Robert, who had replaced her and their daughter with a younger woman. As they neared the village, Jessica's eyes locked on the house she had inherited. The taxi driver had been right. It was indeed where the field hospital was located. Her heart sank, realizing that the dream of a fresh start was now tangled with unforeseen complications. How could this happen? Is there a mistake in these documents? Jessica thought sadly, her mind racing with anxiety. She had trusted everything would go smoothly, yet here she was, faced with uncertainty. Meanwhile, William, the ever-dependable taxi driver, stopped at the gate marked by a striking red cross. The scene was almost surreal. The gate stood as a foreboding barrier between them and whatever lay beyond. "Mom, are we going to live in a hospital?" Sandra asked cautiously, her voice tinged with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Jessica shrugged, her shoulders heavy with the weight of the unknown. "Honestly, Sandra, I don't know. This is the last thing I expected to happen." She tried to offer a reassuring smile, but it came out more like a grimace. As William set the suitcases down in front of the gate, he pulled out a small bundle of medicine, carefully wrapped it, and began knocking on the gate with a firm hand. "Hey, is anyone home? I've got a delivery here," he called out, his voice echoing in the still air. Jessica looked around warily. It felt as if the entire village was watching her every move, despite the apparent tranquility of the place. The village itself moved at a leisurely pace, dogs barking with excitement, geese honking loudly, and pigs snorting contentedly as they rooted around in their troughs. The sounds of the village life created a bizarrely normal backdrop to her inner turmoil. In the distance, cows grazed peacefully in a lush pasture, expected to return home by dusk, guided by the familiar shouts of the village shepherd. Soon, the creak of the front door being opened reached their ears, and moments later the gate swung open. Standing there was a woman in her 30s, dressed in a typical white medical coat, her face marked by a clear expression of displeasure. She cast a hostile glance at the unexpected visitors and addressed the taxi driver. "Oh, hi William. And who are these people?" "Friends of yours." The driver coughed awkwardly, shuffling his feet. "No, Mary, I was just passing by and Jessica and Sandra were walking along the road. I couldn't just leave them stranded." Mary's expression hardened as if in pain. "And what do they need here? And where's the promised medicine?" The driver was about to explain, but Jessica stepped in. "I came to my house. Well, not entirely mine, but that's beside the point." "How is it not entirely yours? Are you sure there's no mistake?" Mary questioned, her skepticism palpable. "No, everything is correct. I have the documents right here. You can take a look. They're notarized and certified," Jessica replied, feeling slightly embarrassed by her straightforwardness. "Documents, you say? Fine, come in. You'll need to show these papers to the chairman," and Arthur. Mary responded more amiably, her demeanor shifting to that of a junior medical staff member, likely a nurse or orderly. "Well, now that everything is sorted out here, I'll be off. Here, take the medicine. Everything is according to the list. The seal on the package is intact," William said, bidding farewell as he headed back to his car. Evening was approaching, and he still needed to park the car at the taxi stand. "Bye, William. Come again soon. Don't forget," Mary chirped in farewell, her voice suddenly sweet, sending the departing driver an enamored glance. "Oh, it's like a Shakespearean drama unfolding here." She snarled at me like an angry cat. "Must be jealous," perhaps Jessica thought, barely suppressing a smile. The tension in the air was almost tangible. The village's watchful eyes, the strange woman at the gate, and the uncertainty of their new situation all combined to create a scene fraught with emotional undercurrents. Only when the taxi disappeared around the corner did Mary finally decide to usher the guests into the house. The nurse, maintaining her aloof demeanor, refused to help Jessica with the suitcases. Jessica forced a smile but chose not to confront Mary. What would be the point of escalating tensions on their first meeting? Their lives might intersect in unforeseen ways, possibly even working together. The house was divided into two distinct halves, each with a different owner. One half functioned as a medical station where Arthur worked, while the other served as the living quarters. This section had been abandoned until the local chairman renovated it, providing Arthur with a place to live after his own house burned down. His son and daughter-in-law lived far away, and he didn't want to trouble them. "Most likely, your inheritance pertains to the living half of the house," Mary explained as she led the guests inside. "It's quite cozy here, even better than I expected," Jessica observed cautiously, trying to keep her tone light. "Well, of course. What did you expect? They did a thorough renovation here, thanks to the chairman and Arthur," Mary retorted, her tone sharp. Jessica bit her lip in offense, but held back her retort. It was clear they weren't going to roll out the red carpet for her, but that was okay. The most important thing was that she finally got to set down the burdensome suitcases in the hallway. "Mary, who's there, dear? Did William bring the medicine?" I assume a weak male voice trembled from inside. "No, Arthur. It's something else entirely. William has already left, and now some heirs have shown up," Mary replied with disdain, clearly not thrilled about the new arrivals. Jessica's breath caught in outrage. Why was this nurse speaking to her in such a tone? Did she and her daughter not deserve basic respect? "Heirs, that's serious business. Let them in. And Mary, please make some coffee for me," and our guest, the man replied, his voice frail yet authoritative. Mary shot Jessica an angry glance, as if blaming her for Arthur's poor health. "All right, "I'll make it now," Mary grumbled through gritted teeth. Jessica smiled, trying to hide her unease, and walked into the room where Arthur was resting. To her surprise, she found an elderly man, about 80 years old, with a face lined with wrinkles but kind gray eyes that radiated warmth. "Hello, dear guests. Please come in and tell me what brings you here," the elderly man said, breaking the prolonged silence. Jessica felt a wave of anxiety wash over her but pulled out the folder containing the late Vincent Warren's will from her bag. "Here, take a look," she said. "I'm sorry for the suddenness, but if it weren't for the circumstances, I would never have come here so unexpectedly." Arthur smiled gently, not bothering to examine the will. He took Jessica's word for it. At 82, he had learned to read people well, and he immediately understood she was telling the truth. Besides, what would be the point of lying to a kind woman with a little girl in tow and 2 huge suitcases? "Don't worry. I won't turn you away. Please, have a seat," Arthur said kindly. "In a way, it's my fault this happened. The house had been vacant for so long, about 10 years or more, so I decided to use it for my needs. This half of the house used to belong to Vincent Warren, my childhood friend, but when he moved to the city and didn't return for years, I sort of took over this house. If Vincent were to return, I'd give it back without any hesitation." "What about the renovations? You've invested so much money and effort," Jessica asked skeptically. Arthur waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, those? Today they're here, tomorrow they're gone. Is that where happiness lies? The main thing is that we've set up a medical station here. People from all around the area, and sometimes even from the city, soon come to us. It's just a shame about my health. I could use a colleague to help out in emergencies. I'm barely managing on my own. Mary is only a nurse, and there's so much work." At that moment, a spark of hope lit up in Jessica's eyes. "Well, I'm a general practitioner. Maybe I could be of use. Just 2 weeks ago, I was working in the therapy department of the city clinic." Arthur raised an eyebrow in surprise. "In the therapy department, you say? That's perfect. We desperately need specialists like you. Maybe you'll come to work with us. You could live here and work. I can't promise a big salary because our venture is purely voluntary. You understand. But I'll talk to the chairman. Richard Holland is a reasonable man. I think he could arrange a decent salary for you." Jessica shook her head, intrigued. "Arrange, what do you mean? Do you work independently, separate from the local government?" Arthur chuckled softly. "Not entirely. We have some support, but much of what we do here is community-driven. It's a labor of love. We rely on volunteers and donations to keep things running. It's not a conventional setup, but it works for us." Jessica felt a sense of relief wash over her. The possibility of finding a new purpose in this small village, helping people, and maybe even finding a bit of peace for herself and Sandra, seemed like a blessing. "I think I'd like that very much, Arthur," she said, her voice steady. "I think we can make this work." Arthur nodded approvingly. "Welcome then. Let's see how we can build a better future together." Arthur's face lit up with a gentle smile. "You could say that, but it's not quite accurate. We're far from being self-sufficient here. Our circumstances are anything but ideal. We offer assistance to the local community because there's a dire shortage of specialists. Many people can't afford a trip to the city, where even public transport is unreliable. Forget about the train, it's often so crowded that a sick person wouldn't stand a chance. So we do what we can. When necessary, we refer folks to specialists in the city." "Like my mom," Sandra interjected shyly. "Yes, like your mom," Arthur replied earnestly, treating Sandra with the respect of an adult. Jessica observed the elderly doctor, her mind wandering to an intriguing thought. He's genuinely kind-hearted. At his age, many think only of themselves, but he took the initiative to establish a medical station in this village, where medical help is scarce. Arthur noticed the surprise in Jessica's eyes and said, "Make yourselves at home, dearies. I have 2 spare rooms here. I'll stay in one until I find something better, and you and your little girl can have the other. You can even take both rooms if you like, by my age. I've realized luxury isn't necessary. I've adapted to living simply. You could say I live in Spartan conditions." Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes. She hadn't heard such comforting words in a long time, especially from men who had often brought her pain. "Mom, when are we going to eat?" "I'm hungry," Sandra interrupted the emotional moment. Jessica, snapping back to the present, remembered she had packed sandwiches and coffee in a thermos for the journey. The day's events had been so overwhelming they hadn't had a chance to eat. "Let's have dinner together," Jessica suggested warmly to Arthur. Arthur immediately waved his hands. "No, thank you. I've had enough coffee. I don't have much of an appetite, especially after this illness. I used to be an avid diver in my youth, exploring riverbeds. That's how I messed up my back, and now I only see underwater scenes on TV," he chuckled. "Are there any treatments available now? Medicine has advanced so much," Jessica asked cautiously. "Oh dear, I don't want any more medications. I mostly rely on herbs now. I help people because it's the best I can offer." Arthur shook his head. "My son and his fiancée live 2,000 km away, so I rarely see them, but I'm fortunate to have a son, though it's uncertain if they'll have children." Just then, the door opened, and Mary entered with a tray of steaming coffee. "Here, Arthur, help yourself," she said, ignoring Jessica and Sandra. "Thank you, Mary. May God bless you with health and a good husband. It must be tough living alone, especially in a private house," Arthur said kindly. Mary blushed and glanced at the guests nervously. Jessica understood that Mary didn't want her personal life discussed. Jessica wasn't one for gossip and respected others' privacy. "Mary, why didn't you make yourself some coffee?" Arthur asked with concern. "No, I don't feel like it. I had a cup recently. I think I'll go to bed." "I doubt we'll have more patience tonight," Mary replied with forced calmness. Jessica sensed that Mary didn't want to sit with them, likely seeing her as a rival. Jessica herself felt no such rivalry and couldn't fathom moving to this remote area if not for her dire circumstances. She had recently lost her beloved job and now only had half of this rundown house in the middle of nowhere. Sipping her coffee, Jessica drifted into sad memories of her past. The whirlwind of events and images enveloped her like a magical kaleidoscope, where moments from her life unfolded in a seemingly random order. Jessica met her future husband, Robert, within the walls of a bustling hospital. He was already an accomplished doctor, while she had just graduated and was beginning her internship. Rumors about Robert were rampant. His reputation as a ladies' man preceded him, and colleagues warned Jessica that he would undoubtedly try to seduce her. She dismissed their warnings, choosing not to believe the gossip. Jessica was raised with romantic ideals and was not one to rush into relationships. She preferred to thoroughly understand a person's character before allowing them into her life. Realizing he couldn't easily win over the melancholic beauty, Robert changed his approach. He began to court her with the sophistication and charm typical of someone with considerable resources. His parents, who held high positions in the Ministry of Health, actively promoted their son, eventually securing his appointment as the head of a department. The staff was well aware that Robert's prestigious position was more due to his parents' influence than his merit. They cleared the way for him, much like an icebreaker through the Arctic's icy waters. Despite more experienced and qualified doctors vying for the role, it was Robert who became the leader. This rapid advancement was just the beginning of his career's meteoric rise. Ironically, Robert's appointment coincided with the start of his relationship with Jessica. She finally responded to his persistent courtship and began to see herself as his fiancée. However, marriage was not part of Robert's plans. Despite this, he found comfort in Jessica's presence and saw no harm in marrying her, especially since she was 2 months pregnant, tipping the scales towards a quick wedding. Robert had always dreamt of living as a bachelor until he was 40, free from familial obligations. But the news of Jessica's pregnancy changed everything. He fancied himself a knight, conquering hearts with ease, but Jessica was different. She refused to be just another conquest, and this frustrated Robert. Colleagues assumed he would now push her up the career ladder, just as his parents had done for him. To everyone's disappointment, Robert was a poor manager, more interested in taking bribes than in his duties. Meanwhile, Jessica faced a challenging pregnancy with little support from her husband. She suffered from morning sickness and dizziness, which made concentrating on her work difficult. Robert's indifference was stark when Jessica woke up at night in discomfort. He would turn over or leave the room to watch TV. The situation worsened when it was discovered Jessica was carrying twins. Robert began to disappear for days, claiming work pressures. He offered vague excuses about ministry demands and the chief doctor's incessant calls. Jessica was concerned about his health and diet, but Robert dismissed her worries, falsely claiming he ate at the canteen across the road. In reality, he spent his time with a mistress. By the time Sandra was born, it was rumored Robert had multiple mistresses and juggled several relationships without any sense of responsibility. Jessica went into labor at home, hoping the twins would arrive as scheduled, but fate had other plans. Robert was absent, enjoying himself at a hotel, oblivious to his wife's plight. The ambulance arrived late due to a blizzard, and Robert, with his phone off, remained unreachable. When he finally learned of Sandra's birth 2 days later, his first question was, "Why is there only one girl? Where is the second one?" His insensitivity shattered Jessica. She had lost one of the twins during childbirth, and her joy at Sandra's birth was overshadowed by immense grief. Jessica's life had taken a dramatic turn. The man she married for love and security had become a source of pain and disappointment. His selfishness and neglect left her to navigate the most challenging moments of her life alone, transforming her dreams of a happy family into a heartbreaking reality. The cesarean section was performed right on schedule, and the attending surgeon did everything as required. It seemed like there was nothing risky about this routine operation, but each case is unique, and there's always a chance something could go wrong. Despite the tragic outcome, Jessica did not blame her medical colleagues or anyone else. She understood that life presents us with unforeseen challenges. After Sandra was born, Robert inexplicably grew distant and began blaming Jessica for the death of their second daughter. "It's all your fault," he spat. "If you had gone to the hospital on time, everything would have been fine. But no, you waited, didn't you? You should have been in the pathology department for 2 weeks as prescribed, but instead you felt the pull of your family home." Jessica's face paled and her expression hardened. "What does that have to do with anything? You're not an obstetrician. You're the head of the therapeutic department and have no right to tell me what would have been better or worse," she retorted. Robert smirked, a cruel glint in his eyes. "Well, don't think I'll cover for you in 3 years. If you don't come back from maternity leave, I'll fire you, or better yet, transfer you to some remote location. Employees from the provinces are always asking for skilled personnel, so I'll send you there if you keep this up." Jessica's eyes filled with tears as she replied, "Do whatever you want. You can even send me to the middle of nowhere. I don't care anymore." As time passed, the burden of raising their daughter fell solely on Jessica's shoulders. Robert vanished for days on end, immersed in his web of intrigues and rivalries. He no longer hid his indiscretions, flaunting his time with beauties and new nurses rather than working at his desk. 8 years slipped by, an eternity for Jessica. Every day was the same monotonous routine: work, home, work. Like many young mothers, Jessica managed to send Sandra to kindergarten and then to school, all on her own, with hardly any support from Robert. Her in-laws were equally distant, rarely inviting Sandra over, making Jessica wonder if they suspected Sandra wasn't Robert's child. Their strained existence might have continued indefinitely had Jessica not met Vincent, an elderly patient who had been in the clinic for 3 weeks. To her dismay, Vincent openly acknowledged he probably wouldn't leave the hospital. Despite this, Jessica connected with him immediately. He was a wise man who had lived a hard life and enjoyed reminiscing about his childhood in a remote village, where he still had a house. Vincent's illness was severe, and Jessica knew he might embellish his past or cast it in a negative light. She also knew she couldn't cure him, but she could ease his suffering with care and carefully chosen medication. "Thank you, Jessica. You're all I have left. I had a son, but he ended up in prison and never really came back. Recently, I heard he died during a riot. They sent me a zinc coffin and an obituary. They didn't even let me open the lid. I cried, mourned, and then organized the funeral. Soon after, I ended up here. You ran some tests, and they found I was seriously ill. I tried to tough it out, treat myself with herbs, but now I see it was all in vain. Oh, Vincent, you still have plenty of life ahead of you. Let me prescribe you a new medication, and you'll feel noticeably better. Trust me, I've handled more severe cases than yours," Jessica reassured him, though she knew it was impossible to deceive a man with his experience. Vincent's story resonated deeply with Jessica, reminding her of the resilience required to endure life's hardships. Despite her struggles, she found solace in helping others, reaffirming her purpose as a healer. Their conversations became a source of strength for Jessica, inspiring her to face her challenges with renewed determination. Through Vincent's wisdom and her unwavering compassion, Jessica discovered that even in the darkest times, there is always a glimmer of hope. One evening, as her shift was nearing its end, Jessica found herself summoned by an elderly patient. He beckoned her to sit beside him, his eyes holding a serious question that made her uneasy. "Jessica," he began, his voice trembling with urgency, "I hope you won't think I'm overstepping, but there's something you need to know about Robert, your department head. He's a despicable man, betraying you with multiple women. These other women are clueless. But I'm here every day and I see everything. Forgive my bluntness, but any decent person in my position would stay silent. However, I cannot. Leave him, take your daughter Sandra, and get far away from here. I saw Sandra visit you at lunch. She's a lovely girl." Jessica gazed at the old man with a mixture of pity and resignation. His words echoed the suspicions and fears that had been festering within her, like a storm ready to burst. She lacked the strength to abandon her husband and start anew. Not everyone can wear the armor of a heart hardened by betrayal. If it was just infidelity, I might have held my tongue, the elderly man continued. But he belittles you, mocks you publicly. Everyone here knows, except you. Leave him, my dear. Raise Sandra on your own. You're intelligent and capable. You don't need to endure this cruelty." Jessica hesitated, her voice trembling. "But where would I go, Vincent? I have nowhere to live. Sandra and I are in his house, and he's my boss. I can't simply walk away. Professional boundaries still exist." Vincent paused, contemplating her plight. "Jessica, I have a small house in my hometown. It's been vacant for a decade, but it's sturdy and can be your refuge. You treated me with genuine kindness, and I want to repay that. Let me offer you this chance for a new beginning." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "No, Vincent, I can't accept such a gift. It's your home." "What right do I have?" Vincent grasped her hand gently. "You have every right. I could leave it to the state, but they'd tear it down. I want my home to support you and Sandra, to be a memory of kindness. It's a bit of a drive, but it's your sanctuary." Jessica shook her head, uncertainty etched in her features. "I don't know if I can do this, Vincent. I'll try, but Sandra has school and we need to prepare." "It's a big change," Vincent nodded, understanding the challenges ahead. And don't delay your resignation, Jessica. Robert plans to fire you on fabricated charges. I overheard him plotting with his lackeys. You need to leave before he acts." Jessica clenched her fists, anger and fear swirling within her. "Yes, I know who you mean. He's conspiring against me." Vincent's eyes softened with empathy. "Exactly. It's better to leave on your terms than be dismissed unjustly. I'll make sure the house is yours. Don't wait too long." The very same day, Vincent summoned a notary to his bedside and transferred the deed of his house to Jessica. Tragically, by morning Vincent had passed away. His warnings became reality as Robert determined to rid himself of Jessica and Sandra, and publicly accused her of negligence. In a staff meeting, he coldly declared, "Jessica, you've neglected your duties, spending excessive time with one patient while ignoring others. Pack your things and leave." Jessica fought to keep her composure. "What do you mean? Pack my things?" Robert's cruel smile widened. "Everything in my house. We're done. You and Sandra must go." The weight of his betrayal crashed over her like a wave of icy water. "After 8 years, you're casting us aside," she whispered, tears brimming. 8 years is not a lifetime," he replied, indifferent. "Let's not prolong this. I won't officially fire you, to keep your record clean, but you have no future here." With her world shattered, Jessica left his office, sobbing uncontrollably. Her life had turned upside down in an instant, leaving her to pick up the pieces and find a way forward for herself and Sandra. Vincent's lifeless body was found the next morning, and just a few hours later, his ominous warning came to pass. It was at that moment that Jessica realized the gravity of the elderly patient's words. Urgently, she gathered her belongings and headed towards the remote village Vincent had spoken of so fondly. The reality of starting her life from scratch hit her like a tidal wave. She knew her new journey would be fraught with challenges, and the uncertainty loomed large. Would her new story be a pristine, unmarred chapter, or would it be a messy, error-filled dictation? The difficulties, especially finding work, were daunting. Who would need a therapist in such an isolated place? Meanwhile, leveraging his connections in the judicial system, Robert expedited their divorce, bypassing the mandatory waiting period. In a grave misstep, Jessica refused alimony from her detested husband, a decision she would come to regret deeply. As she sipped her fragrant coffee, the daunting thought of the challenging initial period in the village gnawed at her. "So Jessica, what have you decided? Will you help me? Or rather, will you be the one seeing patients while I assist you, given my dwindling strength?" said Arthur, the village's seasoned doctor. "Thank you, Vincent, for sending such a remarkable person to our village. May he rest in peace." Arthur added with a soft sigh. Jessica pondered her situation. On one hand, she had secured accommodation and a job. On the other hand, living in half a house with her child wasn't ideal. Yet, living in Robert's sprawling mansion hadn't brought happiness. She resolved never to cross that threshold again. "Yes, Arthur, I agree. Just give me some time to adapt and familiarize myself with your medical station," Jessica replied cautiously. "Of course, dear. I understand. You likely had more advanced equipment and a different setup in the city. Here, it's minimalistic, as you can see. We rely on the hope that sponsors might help us someday. Villagers can offer little more than milk or eggs. But it's still support. We will provide immense help to the people here," Arthur said, his voice warm and reassuring. Initially, the village nurse took an instant dislike to Jessica, mistaking her arrival for a threat. Mary, the nurse, wasn't jealous in the literal sense. She simply wanted to be the best in everything. Jessica's presence challenged her status as the leading figure in rural medicine. Despite this, Mary had to defer to Jessica's extensive medical knowledge and credentials. Jessica quickly became invaluable, performing minor procedures like administering injections, measuring blood pressure, and conducting blood sugar tests. However, Mary saw her as an intruder, someone trying to make a name for herself at Mary's expense. A week later, Arthur began to feel slightly better and resumed seeing patients. Jessica, now fully immersed in her work, became his indispensable right hand, often thanking the late Vincent in her heart. She dedicated herself to the welfare of the villagers, helping everyone from the youngest to the oldest. In quieter moments, Arthur would reminisce about his childhood with Vincent, when they were classmates, played football, fished, and swam together. After the army, Vincent moved to the city, while Arthur stayed in the village. The village once had a full-fledged district hospital, but funding cuts left the building empty. It was disheartening. The village seemed doomed. I was offered a promising position in the region, but I chose to stay. I worked as an ambulance paramedic and saw patients at home. When I retired, I knew we needed a medical station to help those in this remote area, Arthur recounted. Jessica agreed. You're right, Arthur. Your vision is commendable. It's challenging to get to the district center. Arthur smiled. Yes, the roads are treacherous. Both motorists and bus drivers struggle. But William, our golden-hearted taxi driver, manages well. He and his older sister were orphans. Now, he raises his nephew, Calvin, after his sister and her husband died in a car accident. William took him in to prevent him from going into foster care. Calvin goes to kindergarten, and William works extra as a taxi driver to support them. When their schedules clash, he hires a nanny, which isn't cheap. I try to help him out whenever I can, giving him odd jobs and career advice, Arthur explained with a kind smile. Jessica felt a surge of admiration for the community spirit that bound the village together. Despite the uncertainties and challenges, she felt a glimmer of hope. With the support of people like Arthur and the late Vincent's generous gift, she was ready to face her new life head-on, determined to create a better future for herself and Sandra. Jessica was utterly astonished by the elderly doctor's tale. She had always perceived William as just an ordinary taxi driver trying to make a living, but now she viewed him through an entirely new lens. In a moment of unbidden comparison, she found herself measuring William against Robert, her ex-husband, and recognized that her fiancé was not nearly as remarkable as this humble young taxi driver. During a deeply revealing and emotional conversation with Arthur, Jessica discovered that a year ago, Mary had been romantically involved with William. However, she left him when he chose to become the guardian of his nephew, showcasing a selfless and nurturing side that deeply resonated with Jessica. In a heated outburst, Mary had told William that she found the constant crying of the baby unbearable. William, remarkably composed, did not respond with anger or drama. He simply packed his belongings and vanished into the night with the baby carriage, a silent testament to his unwavering commitment and strength of character. This was all the more poignant as Mary and William had been diligently preparing for a wedding that was just weeks away. Eventually, when her fury subsided, Mary regretted her harsh words and repeatedly sought William's forgiveness. However, William, profoundly hurt, knew he could never trust someone as duplicitous and callous as Mary again. From the moment Jessica and William met, there was an undeniable attraction and mutual admiration. This did not sit well with Mary at all. She employed every conceivable tactic to disrupt their growing connection. Yet, despite her efforts, Jessica was her superior, so Mary could only cause minor inconveniences, attempting to tarnish Jessica's reputation. She spread rumors, created awkward situations, and tried to undermine Jessica's credibility in the eyes of their colleagues. But William, seemingly oblivious to the scheming, continued to be drawn to Jessica, appreciating her more with each interaction. Observing their blossoming relationship, Arthur smiled, silently grateful to fate for bringing such a perceptive assistant into his life. Unbeknownst to many, the late Vincent had orchestrated events with a dual purpose: to free an unfortunate mother from her unfaithful husband and to bless the beloved village with a highly skilled general practitioner. Initially, Jessica was upset with Vincent for not informing her that the house was originally split into two parts. However, She soon realized that the village was indeed the most wonderful place on earth. On weekends, she would stroll by the river with Sandra and William, forage for mushrooms in the forest, and immerse herself in nature's tranquility. These moments made her painfully aware of the sadness and loneliness she had felt during weekends with her ex-husband Robert, who was always distracted and emotionally distant. Mary, on the other hand, was infuriated and secretly shed tears seeing Jessica and William spending time together. Once, the cunning nurse even complained to Arthur, alleging that Jessica had spoken ill of him. But the wise old doctor immediately saw through her ploy. "Mary, I don't believe a single word you say. Jealousy and envy are unbecoming traits. Accept the truth and move on. William is no longer yours." Mary muttered in frustration, slamming the door behind her. 6 months slipped by unnoticed. Jessica and William grew so close that they began to see themselves as a couple. Despite Mary's manipulations, their bond strengthened each day, filling their lives with love and mutual respect. In a final act of desperation, Mary planted a lipstick in William's car, hoping that Jessica, who never wore makeup, would find it and react with jealousy. Instead, Jessica simply laughed and tossed the lipstick into the trash. Mary lamented the loss, knowing that high-end cosmetics were not cheap, and felt her defeat all the more deeply. Jessica's connection with William continued to flourish. They spent countless hours sharing their dreams and aspirations, delving into deep conversations that unveiled their innermost thoughts and fears. William, with his gentle demeanor and unwavering support, became a pillar of strength for Jessica. He admired her intelligence, her kindness, and her unwavering dedication to her work and the people in the village. In turn, Jessica found herself drawn to William's quiet resilience, his capacity for love, and his unwavering moral compass. Their weekends together became a cherished routine. They explored the village's scenic beauty, enjoying peaceful walks by the river where they would sit and talk for hours, the sound of the flowing water providing a soothing backdrop to their conversations. They discovered hidden paths in the forest, gathering mushrooms and marveling at the beauty of nature. These moments were filled with laughter, companionship, and a growing sense of belonging that neither had experienced before. As their bond deepened, they began to share more personal aspects of their lives. Jessica opened up about her painful past with Robert, the emotional neglect, and the constant feeling of loneliness despite being married. William listened with empathy and understanding, offering her a safe space to heal and move forward. He, in turn, shared his experiences of loss and the challenges of raising his nephew, revealing a vulnerability that made Jessica love him even more. Despite Mary's continuous efforts to drive a wedge between them, Jessica and William remained steadfast. They found solace and strength in each other, their love growing stronger with each passing day. Mary's attempts to sabotage their relationship became increasingly desperate and transparent, but Jessica and William rose above it all, choosing to focus on the positivity and love they had found in each other. In time, the village began to see William in a new light as well. His dedication to his nephew and his unwavering support for Jessica earned him the respect and admiration of the community. He was no longer just a taxi driver, he was a man of integrity, compassion, and strength, qualities that endeared him to everyone he met. Jessica, too, found her place in the village. She became an integral part of the community, her skills and compassion making a significant impact on the lives of those she cared for. The villagers, who were initially skeptical of the new doctor, soon came to rely on her expertise and her genuine care for their well-being. Jessica's relationship with William only strengthened her connection to the village, as they became a beloved couple who brought joy and hope to everyone around them. Their love story was not without its challenges, but it was these very challenges that solidified their bond. They faced each obstacle together, their love and respect for each other growing with each hurdle they overcame. They learned to trust in their connection, to communicate openly and honestly, and to support each other unconditionally. Jessica often reflected on the twists and turns that had led her to this point. She realized that every heartache, every moment of loneliness, and every challenge had brought her closer to this incredible love and fulfillment she now experienced with William. She felt grateful for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the unwavering support of those who had believed in her. As time went on, Jessica and William began to envision a future together. They dreamed of a life filled with love, laughter, and the simple joys of everyday moments. They talked about their plans, their hopes for the future, and the family they wanted to build together. Their love was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience and the beauty of finding love in the most unexpected places. In the end, Jessica's shock and awe at the elderly doctor's story transformed into a profound appreciation for the journey that had led her to William. She realized that love, in its truest form, was about finding someone who accepted you for who you were, who supported your dreams, and who walked beside you through every storm. And with William by her side, she knew she had found just that. A month after the heartwarming wedding, Jessica received the shocking news that turned her world upside down once again. Robert, her ex-husband, had become a suspect in a sprawling criminal case involving large bribes and fraudulent activities at the city clinic where he worked. The investigation, spearheaded by a determined team of law enforcement officers, led to the removal of the chief physician and nearly all the department heads, all of whom had been implicated in abusing their positions. Jessica discovered this startling development from the newspapers she regularly subscribed to. Each morning, she would sit with Sandra, her young daughter, and read through the latest headlines, achieving a double result: staying informed about the latest happenings in the city and helping Sandra develop her reading skills. As Jessica digested the shocking revelations about Robert, she felt a mix of emotions. There was a sense of betrayal, as the man she had once trusted had been involved in such unethical practices. Yet there was also relief, knowing that she had made the right decision in leaving him and starting anew. The city she had once called home now seemed tainted with corruption and deceit, further solidifying her resolve to remain in the tranquil village that had become her sanctuary. Sometime later, a new chief physician arrived in the village, bringing with him an air of change and opportunity. He approached Jessica with an unexpected offer to return to the city and take up the vacant position as head of the department. Jessica looked at him in surprise, her mind racing. She had not anticipated such an offer and the implications it carried. Shaking her head, she responded firmly, "No, I'm sorry. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying. Everything suits me here." Her voice was resolute, leaving no room for doubt. At that moment, Arthur, who had been listening nearby, intervened. "Jessica, wait. Don't be hasty. Maybe you should consider it. It's a great opportunity to advance your career," he urged, his tone gentle but persuasive. Arthur, ever the mentor, wanted the best for her and saw the potential in the offer. But Jessica's resolve remained unshaken. "No, I'm staying here," she repeated, her voice carrying the weight of her conviction. This village, with its simplicity and genuine connections, had become her haven. She could not imagine leaving behind the life she had built and the people she had come to care for so deeply. Meanwhile, Mary watched the exchange with bated breath, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and anxiety. She imagined that Jessica might accept the offer and leave for the city, thus leaving Arthur and William behind. But as Jessica's firm refusal echoed in her ears, Mary realized her plans were crumbling. Jessica had stubbornly refused the offer from the newcomer, choosing to stay in the place that had become dear to her heart. A moment of clarity struck Mary. Desperation and ambition surged within her as she hurriedly caught up with the clinic's chief physician, who was already on his way out. "Joseph, maybe you'll take me as a nurse? I've been working here in the province for 4 years, and I want to go to the city for better opportunities and accommodation," she said quietly, her voice tinged with urgency and hope. Joseph Harris raised an eyebrow in surprise, then glanced towards Arthur, who stood on the clinic's porch, watching the interaction. "Colleague, can I take Mary with me?" he called out. Arthur, always the supportive mentor, nodded in agreement. "Of course you can. Mary is a diligent and capable employee. Take her, you won't regret it," he replied, his endorsement clear and sincere. From that day on, Jessica and Mary's paths never crossed again. It was rumored that Mary's ambition so impressed the new chief physician that just 3 months later, he proposed to her. Mary, the once cunning and envious nurse, had found her way to the city, where her dreams of career advancement and better opportunities were being realized. Ironically, at the same time, William and Jessica were tying the knot in a modest ceremony at a small church in a neighboring village. Their wedding was a simple, heartfelt affair, filled with genuine warmth and love. They chose not to make a grand spectacle of it, preferring instead the intimacy of close friends and family. As they exchanged vows, surrounded by nature and the supportive community, Jessica felt a profound sense of belonging and peace. She knew she had made the right choice in staying. The celebration continued well into the evening, with music, laughter, and stories being shared under the starlit sky. Children played around the bonfire, and elders reminisced about days gone by. Jessica looked around at the faces of those who had come to mean so much to her and felt a deep gratitude for the life she had built. Residents from several nearby villages gathered to celebrate, eager to congratulate their beloved doctor and the hospitable taxi driver. Watching the joyful newlyweds, Arthur smiled, silently thanking his childhood friend Vincent, whose actions had changed their lives for the better and brought an invaluable specialist to the village. Jessica and William's life together was a testament to love and perseverance. They spent countless hours sharing their dreams and aspirations, delving into deep conversations that unveiled their innermost thoughts and fears. William, with his gentle demeanor and unwavering support, became a pillar of strength for Jessica. He admired her intelligence, her kindness, and her unwavering dedication to her work and the people in the village. In turn, Jessica found herself drawn to William's quiet resilience, his capacity for love, and his unwavering moral compass. Their weekends together became a cherished routine. They explored the village's scenic beauty, enjoying peaceful walks by the river, where they would sit and talk for hours, the sound of the flowing water providing a soothing backdrop to their conversations. They discovered hidden paths in the forest, gathering mushrooms and marveling at the beauty of nature. These moments were filled with laughter, companionship, and a growing sense of belonging that neither had experienced before. As their bond deepened, they began to share more personal aspects of their lives. Jessica opened up about her painful past with Robert, the emotional neglect, and the constant feeling of loneliness despite being married. William listened with empathy and understanding, offering her a safe space to heal and move forward. He, in turn, shared his experiences of loss and the challenges of raising his nephew, revealing a vulnerability that made Jessica love him even more. Despite Mary's continuous efforts to drive a wedge between them, Jessica and William remained steadfast. They found solace and strength in each other, their love growing stronger with each passing day. Mary's attempts to sabotage their relationship became increasingly desperate and transparent, but Jessica and William rose above it all, choosing to focus on the positivity and love they had found in each other. In time, the village began to see William in a new light as well. His dedication to his nephew and his unwavering support for Jessica earned him the respect and admiration of the community. He was no longer just a taxi driver, he was a man of integrity, compassion, and strength, qualities that endeared him to everyone he met. Jessica, too, found her place in the village. She became an integral part of the community, her skills and compassion making a significant impact on the lives of those she cared for. The villagers, who were initially skeptical of the new doctor, soon came to rely on her expertise and her genuine care for their well-being. Jessica's relationship with William only strengthened her connection to the village, as they became a beloved couple who brought joy and hope to everyone around them. Their love story was not without its challenges, but it was these very challenges that solidified their bond. They faced each obstacle together, their love and respect for each other growing with each hurdle they overcame. They learned to trust in their connection, to communicate openly and honestly, and to support each other unconditionally. Jessica often reflected on the twists and turns that had led her to this point. She realized that every heartache, every moment of loneliness, and every challenge had brought her closer to this incredible love and fulfillment she now experienced with William. She felt grateful for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the unwavering support of those who had believed in her. As time went on, Jessica and William began to envision a future together. They dreamed of a life filled with love, laughter, and the simple joys of everyday moments. They talked about their plans, their hopes for the future, and the family they wanted to build together. Their love was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience, and the beauty of finding love in the most unexpected places. In the end, Jessica's shock and awe at the elderly doctor's story transformed into a profound appreciation for the journey that had led her to William. She realized that love, in its truest form, was about finding someone who accepted you for who you were, who supported your dreams, and who walked beside you through every storm. And with William by her side, she knew she had found just that. Their story was one of perseverance, love, and community. It was a reminder that even in the face of challenges, one could find happiness and fulfillment. Jessica and William's life together was a testament to the power of love and the importance of finding a place where one truly belonged. As their first anniversary approached, the couple decided to host a small gathering to celebrate with those who had been a part of their journey. It was a joyous occasion, filled with laughter, shared memories, and the promise of a bright future. Jessica looked at William, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She knew they had many more adventures ahead, and with him by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came their way. The village continued to thrive, its heart beating with the collective spirit of its residents. Jessica and William remained at the center of this vibrant community, their love story a source of inspiration for all. They had built a life together that was rich in love, purpose, and connection, and they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand. Jessica's transformation from a woman trapped in a loveless marriage to a confident, beloved figure in the village was a journey marked by courage, resilience, and love. She had found not only a partner in William, but also a true home in the village. Her life was now filled with meaningful work, deep connections, and the boundless love of a community that cherished her. William, too, had transformed. From a humble taxi driver burdened with the responsibility of raising his nephew alone, he had become a pillar of the community. His kindness, strength, and unwavering support for Jessica had earned him the admiration and respect of everyone who knew him. Their love story was woven into the very fabric of the village, a testament to the power of love, community, and resilience. As they looked towards the future, Jessica and William knew that their journey was just beginning. Together, they would continue to build a life filled with love, purpose, and joy, surrounded by the people and the place that had become their true home. As we come to the end of this video, I hope you found the content enlightening and inspiring. Reflect on what you've learned so far and think about how you can bring these insights into practice in your own life. I'd love to hear from you. Comment below with one thing you've learned and how you plan to implement it. If you like this video, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and may you continue to grow and thrive.